As I said, if you've joined us and the presentation will be in English, I'm about to turn on interpretation. No, I guess you can see it already. So you'll want to select English or Spanish as your channels. And just a moment, I'm going to start up Facebook Live as well. And then we'll begin. Hey. Good morning, everyone. You all can hear me, yes?
Yes.
Good, wonderful. Welcome to our summer series of Latin American children's book creators. I'm Julie Klein. The series is organized by the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and also co-sponsored by our Translation and Interpreting Studies Department. This series was created in collaboration with the International Youth Library in Munich, Germany, the world's largest collection of international children's books. Jochen Weber, head of language sections, has been largely responsible for the content of this whole series. Jochen, would you like to say hello and a few words, please?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much, Julie, and hello. Good afternoon from Munich. It's really great pleasure to be here again and to meet you and our guests of today, Roger and Junko. And yeah, thank you very much to Julie and to the University of Milwaukee. It has been a great pleasure, really great experience to collaborate with you and to organize this series of interviews and meetings with authors, illustrators, and I'm very excited to see and to meet Roger and Junko today, because Roger is a great, wonderful friend of ours, and I remember the exhibition we had with him 10 years ago, and it was wonderful and great for us to see all his work here live and the real artwork, the original artwork. And Junko has been a friend of the library for many, many years now. And she told just a few minutes ago that this year it's the first time for, I don't know how many years that she hasn't been here in summer. So it's a pity that you are not here, but it's great to see you here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jochen. That's the thing, there's been so many of our presenters and moderators that have been fellows at the International Youth Library, so it feels like a reunion of sorts. I would like to give thanks. Our simultaneous interpreters today are Deanna Arbisser and Fatima Cornwall, who are fabulous. Again, doing the Spanish language interpretation on the other channel. Our technical producers are Jay Penn and Khadijah Perry, also wonderful for us. Thanks so much for joining us. And I will say too, we'll wait and do questions after Junko and Roger's presentation or conversation. So we'll save those. Thanks for joining us. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Junko Yokota. Junko Yokota is the founding director of the Center for Teaching with Children's Books and a professor emeritus of reading and language at National Louis University. Dr. Yokota is frequently invited to speak at conferences throughout the US and internationally. Her topics center on issues of multicultural and international literature, literacy development of students of diversity, and improving literacy instruction through quality literature. She's a past president of the US National Section of the International Board on Books for Young People and has served on numerous committees of the International Reading Association and the National Council of Teachers in English. She's served on the Caldecott Award Committee, the Newbery Award Committees, chaired the Batchelder Award Committee, and served multiple times on the IBI Hans Christian Andersen Award jury, currently as jury president. Junko, thank you so much for joining us. May I ask you please to introduce Roger?
Thank you very much, Julie, for inviting me to be here today with you. It's a delight to have an opportunity to engage in conversation with Roger Mello, because he's someone I consider to be not only a dear friend, but really someone who embodies everything I believe in what we should offer for children, which is the very best, both artistically, in story, and most of all, in the spirit of humanity that Roger embodies in all of his work. So while it's hard to capsulize Roger in a few sentences or any of that, I think what I have said is that he himself is the treasure that we will be able to enjoy today. So, winner of multiple awards, but namely the Hans Christian Andersen Award from IBI, today we'll begin with a discussion of taking a look at what it is that he represents and what he does in the world. The important thing to remember about him in creating a sense of this theme is that he's someone who is both a traveler in the world, a person who lives within the world, and a person who creates within the world. And so when I think of him as a creator, I think of him as someone who is both a person who intakes from the world around him, but also equally gives back to the world who he is, not only as a Latin American, as a Brazilian producer of story and books for children, but of how he has integrated his many aspects of his world travels into the being of who he is. So with that as a very brief look at his work, Roger, would you like to say your greeting to the group first?
Yes, I want to say the greeting because I'm really, really moved to be here with you. I am a huge fan. I might say that our friend Johann Weber, all the friends, International Youth Library, Christiane Rabbit, all of them, Claudia, they were a turning point for me. And it's one of the most amazing spots in the world for everyone, because
Indeed,
it's a place where it's a place where you can stop and listen to the voices of the whole world, and visual voices too. And being invited to do this exhibition was a deep, how do I say, a deep immersion in everything, and the authors, the writers, the experts that influenced my whole life. So being there was like really a dream. And it was a dream that was first dreamed by Yella Letman, that is an amazing person and one of the most important people in the world. And I want to thank so much Julie and the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Of course, we have Khadija and Jay and Fatima and Diana that are doing the interpretation, and for the opportunity to talk and to think about nowadays contemporary production in Latin America, which involves, of course, our ancestrality and the complexity of these countries that have such a huge diversity. So I think me and Junko were talking and trying to prepare a little bit, and we were going deep into this diversity, isn't it, Junko?
Mm-hmm.
And
Very
being
much.
in Junko is like being with my sisters, my family. So thank you. I feel home.
Mm-hmm. So thank you. What I'd like to do is, I suppose that many of you may know already of his works that are published in Portuguese, and perhaps you don't know yet, but he has many works published in Chinese, actually, and in many languages around the world. But in the United States here, we currently have 2 books published. You Can't Be Too Careful, which instantly won acclaim as an American Library Association Batchelder winner, and the new book Charcoal Boys, which is about child labor and has this really wonderfully interactive feature within it where you have real flames burning as we go through the book. But in addition to that, he has a brand new book coming out in the fall, I believe. And so we can look forward to more and more of his books becoming available in English as well as in the original Portuguese language. But he would like to start his slideshow by showing you a peek at his very newest work that he's creating, which gives you a voice of who he is as a Brazilian, a Latin American, and then to start with a sense of how he grounds his travels within the world and within the world of book creating by his own childhood, his own sense of self as a Brazilian.
Yes. Yes, this is the new book. It's a complex design, how they say, object. And it opens wide like the Amazon River. It's a book that opens that way, this and this. But it starts to recall the, let's say, horizontality of the river, a river that is made by also a river in the clouds and a river deep in the underground. That the cover of this book, it's very interesting because a long time ago, the cover of the book was used firstly for the Hans Christian Andersen dossier that used to be made by hand. It was a silkscreen piece, and it took lots of people involved on doing this printing. Mm-hmm. And now we see in this page many monkeys and birds from Brazil, and fruits and fishes. The book is a book. This is the page that is not about people, but the other pages are a very human Amazon, because sometimes we forget that people live in the Amazon since who knows. And there is a very good archaeologist from Brazil, Eduardo Neves Góes, and he says that one sometimes try to find pyramids in Amazon, but it's a different kind of archaeology. Those civilizations, very old civilizations, live there, even planting trees. And Amazon is not that, how do I say, natural, chaotic thing, but there were places where the land, the black ground, is made by people using very, very interesting technology of how do I say, genetic modification. Mm-hmm. So they are very complex people, and this archaeology is an archaeology of abundance. Abundance, is that right, Junko? Okay.
So, I don't know the word. Mm-hmm.
How do I say the opposite of lack? Abundance. Can I say this word?
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, abundance. Maybe someone else can help us on that one. So I think when I look at this artwork of yours that you have created for your new work, we started with this particular image because it encapsulates both his sense of his love of animals, his sense of belonging to the world of the Amazon, the world of Brazil. And I think this one image singularly gives you a great balance of understanding who he is. In other words, there's vividness, there's energy that you find in the color, the design, and yet there's at the same time harmoniousness, a sense of balance. He has a great way of taking a look at that which is the blank so that it gives you space to enter, and that which is so engaging that you're mesmerized. So in a sense, we started with this image so that we could talk about who he is as a creator, both from within, but also how he expresses going out. The next image that he's going to show takes you out into the next image he is going to show.
The word in English is abundance, or plenty, or fullness.
Oh, okay. I see. So anyway, this, like I said, this image is a balance of both the space he leaves us to enter with the space he gives us to be mesmerized in his energetic work. So what he has done as a person who is both taking in the world, but also giving to the world. In the next slide, what you will see is a way of looking at how his deep care of the children of the world is shown in this project that he incorporated for the International Board on Books for Young People, the IBI Children in Crisis program. Roger often gives very, very generously to our world. And the next slide will give you an example of how he has done that with both his Latin American background, but for the children of the world.
Yes, in this illustration, we were doing the scarves for IBI, and 10 illustrators, winner of the Hans Christian Andersen, were taking part to help children in crisis and to help some participants of some boards in different countries of IBBY. And I was trying, I was talking to Junko, to Patricia Aldana and and Liz Page about I wanted to show we are an issue right now because you know that we are under Bolsonaro's administration, which is a non-administration, and the people, native indigenous Brazilian people are suffering a lot. Many of them are victims now to the COVID, and really the state really doesn't care. And there are people struggling and giving help, but this is not from the government. And Javaé is those two people. They are Javaé dancers in a ritualistic dance from one of the biggest islands in rivers in the world called Bananal Island. And this is a very rare moment where, and you see the plants again, plants and animals are also endangered from these places. And I wanted to show a little bit of that moment that is unique moment that we can see from those remarkable tradition.
So as you can see from this image, what we understand is that his background of who he is does play out very much in connecting the Brazilian situation, the Brazilian children, with his support for children in crisis the world over. This connection began because of his work, because of his being awarded the Hans Christian Andersen Award from IBI. And with this keen interest in the work of who Hans Christian Andersen is, Hoja has created an illustration of the story CLACS, in which he is able to show us, again, a connection from his artistic roots to a story that is created out of a Danish background.
Yes, this was an invitation by Panamericana Publishing House, and many amazing artists were invited from Latin America and also from Scandinavian countries. That was this idea of bringing these two traditions together. And it was fantastic because the flex was my short story. And it's a wonderful story, and it reveals a lot of what Andersen is, the complexity he is, and how he can deal with the human pain, I would say. And I was trying to make of this illustration a real flex. Mm-hmm. And it was the same technique that I used in the next book. It was made a long time ago, but here, and I finished this illustration in Junko's house in Chicago, but it started in Brazil, so it's a traveling flex. Pretty much like the store. It's made in opposite. It was made in black over white background, and we made this conversion of colors. And you can see that from the very creation of the flax, with the flax plant here, till the end, that is in another illustration, you can see a cycle, as a cycle of life. And although it's a contemporary illustration, it deals with my research on traditional inheritance, and the cycle of life is something very important to these traditions all over the world.
So as you can see here, he has done a great job of helping us to understand how, despite the fact that this final product that you see here is very digitized and created with a mechanical sense, you can see the hand of the illustrator in even the smallest details of the fringe that you see there that feel the texture of the flax story that we have at hand. So crossing across cultures from Denmark to Brazil, but being created in Evanston, Illinois along the way. So
Yes.
connecting, this is the book that he had, yes.
Can remember how it was really handmade, but it was then turned into another kind of reading process. But it was really the same size of the book, and I was carrying it around the many places in the house of Junko, which Junko and Bill's house is like it's a place for creation.
We'll talk about other creation stories on this one at our house later, but the next slide that he has prepared is one that helps us to see how this very new work that was just created 2 years ago connects to the roots of what he was doing decades ago in this book that will be coming out in the United States this year.
Yes, I don't know yet the final title, because we have elsewhere amazing publishing house. It's an honor for me and delight. And the translation by Daniel Han, which he is fantastic, and he's a great storyteller. Believe me, when he wants to. Really a storyteller. He's an actor. And I don't know if he's an actor, but he is an actor. And this illustration of the book, I think it's important for me. It was also exhibited in Munich, in International Youth Library. And when I was doing these illustrations, again, with pen and pencil and going to Xerox reproduction, that would connect me to the ancestrality of the lines in South America, mainly in Bolivia, Ecuador, Peru. There is a city which is 5,000 years old, one of the oldest mother cities in the world, as old as Egypt and Mesopotamia, called Caral. So when I started to do the book, again, traveling with some illustrations and ideas. And it took me, let's say, around 8 years until I first got to Bolivia, Peru, in Lake Titicaca. And then I said, now I have to finish this book. So really what Junko says, that traveling, not only a book, is an object that was created with the possibility of being destroyed. So you have to carry it easily. So it's a nomadic object. Also, the creation of the book has a nomadic, let's say, process.
Yes, very good example of that particular thing. And I hope you keep in mind the images that we just saw of this book, because you'll see it again repeated in three-dimensionality later. So,
yes.
Okay, do you want to talk about Mangrove Kids?
Mangrove Kids, I was doing the art direction in a short movie by Adolfo Lastermacher called The Cycle of the Crab. O Ciclo do Caranguejo by Josué de Castro was a text that he did, and he was talking about the origin of hunger in the world. And he was seeing a person living in the mangrove. catching crab for a living. And we went to the place, we went to the shooting, how they say, we went to the location, and it was in Pernambuco, northeast of Brazil. And I was since I was a young person, I was a child, I was in love with the mangrove, which was really far away from me because I was born in Brasilia, a place in the middle of the highlands in Cerrado. Cerrado is like the savanna of Brazil. But every end of the year we traveled to another city, a coastal city, and I could see the mangrove, and it was even more moving for me than the beach, than the sea. And I like the black mud of the mangrove, which seems to be all over the world the place where the transition, evolutionary transition between the creatures and the animals from the sea go to the ground. And there's also lots of people living there. So again, is this idea of an ecology, a human ecology that are and can be together. So I decided to do this illustration. I think the theme, the book, the dummy of the book can show me what kind of technique I want to use. So completely different technique here. I was seeing, of course, and that was bothering me, always bother someone who loves nature, to see plastic bags in the amazing roots of the mangrove. But the mangrove is this nursery of the sea life. It's the place where these people live. But as part of the city, it retains the dust, it retains the garbage. Yes. And I decided to take this thing that bothered me as a moving point to do. So I glued those plastic pieces in the paper, and then I started to paint with industrial wall paint over it. So let me go. This is the tide. The tide is hanging every of her clothes, and when she takes all of the clothes and hang them to dry, the water goes down because she has so many clothes. And so again, I think there is this modern contemporary relation with contemporary art, with this thing of using industrial paint and using collage, but again with the tradition, making a third element. So here we have the Japanese robot. He is going to appear a lot in my illustrations, and you have the avant-garde technology, and you have the red crab that is old. So all of them are toys for children. So in many ways, the crab is like the words, is like the letters for the children. You have this is the cover of the book. So you can see when the tide is down, those houses are over pilotis, these sticks, just like in Brasilia. It's like the modernist or modern architecture, but it was standing there for a long time. And we have the 50th anniversary exhibition of winners of the Hans Christian Andersen Award illustration. So this is, it was not the first place where it was held. It was in Beijing, and they did this reproduction, making it possible for people, adults, children, everyone, to be part of the illustration. It was in, you see the stairs, and I think it's Impen's illustration, in the stairs of Beijing National Library. And it was amazing to see so many people, children, adults, all of them involved with these creators, and
So,
to be among them. Yes, Junko.
as you can see here, what's wonderful about how his artwork speaks not only his own personal voice in what he wants to express, and both beautifully and through the thematic sense of the text, but also how the world has embraced the ideas that they also want to know. And so, in a sense, he's served as an ambassador to the world through his work that he has done. I especially appreciate it when we see an early example of immersive art in which the viewers, in fact, can engage within the art, not just to see it statically as in this one, but earlier where they're standing on the art and in the art that's shown there. So, continuing with this idea of the issues in the world that really strike at your heart and that you want to help the world to understand, can you tell us a little bit about Charcoal Boys?
Yes, Charcoal Boys is that book, but it was published now by Elsewhere in the States, United States, and it's a book like Mangrove Kids. It's a book that talks about children's labor. It was an issue for me because I wanted to talk about it, but I knew that it was very easy for anybody, any author, to reduce something to something anthropological in a bad way, or statistic, or pamphleto. I didn't want to do this, mainly with children that are working, but it is nowadays still an issue in Brazil and in many other parts of the world. So I decided that I would tell this story not by my point of view, but by the point of view of this wasp, of this hornet. And the hornet doesn't see the boy as a boy. He sees the boy as the matter of his problems. and, and since he's not a constructed narrator, he has to make himself into a character and into a narrator. So he starts, I would say, talking about the boy, and the boy can see him. And he finds a relation between him and the boy, because the boy does the house of the fire to put the trunk there and make charcoal, and he does the house upside down to hold his baby. And he doesn't understand why the boy doesn't fly. And in the middle of the book, almost in the end of the book, something very surprising happened, that the narrator and the object of the narration, the human object, was the boy. They meet, but this is not a good encounter. And it was so funny for me not to be able to control this meeting of the narrator with the object of the narration, which actually is the human, and he's more close to an object. But then at the end, I am very in love with when I'm writing or illustrating with characters, doing characters, knowing how, because there is a point where you cannot hold the character anymore. Even the narrator. The narrator, he now he's human, and now he exists, and children know this. And he was so angry with the boy, as for the boy, he was not important, but he is the one who's telling the story. And that would avoid me to turn the boy, which is a human, very important. And of course, there is an issue, human labor, slave labor, children labor, but I won't reduce the boy to a statistic. He is a human, complex character. And many times the children's labor is going to appear. And I was in the books that I do, I was so it was so nice for me because many people told me, this is a book from Brazil. This is a book that only interests to Brazil. And I said, okay, I have to do it too. I have to do books that talk about to children in Brazil. But the nice thing is that United States and China were interested so much in this book, and this book were published. And now we can discuss about this problem that is not only a problem from Brazil.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate the ways in which you have embodied the thematic issues that are important to all of us and created a way to artistically tell the story and to give voice to the children whose stories have not been told except through those statistics. And instead, you've given them a whole life story so that it humanizes who they are. So the next book that you have lined up, I can tell, is going to be Catarineta. And I'm particularly intrigued by the way in which you have created a possibility for children in your very neighborhood of Guarachiba to participate in the telling of the story.
Yes, this book is, the story is not mine. I did let's say, the collection of many, because there are countless. This is a very important book for people who speak Portuguese around the world. So it's a very old tradition. It used to be a dance. It's also, let's say, like it's like a mix of Homer and opera, because it's all sing. It's in places like Mozambique, Angola, Cabo Verde, Timor, Portugal, and Brazil, Madeira Island, and you have many versions. And I wanted the illustration to be like an opera. So you have many of the singing places or parts, and you have the participants of this opera. And it's from the 17th century, and it's got let's say, specific accents in each place it was held. You see in the beginning the fishes, because the boat is going to leave from, even, I don't know if it's Goa, I don't know if it's Olinda in Brazil, I don't know if it's Portugal. But you see the fishes are from the coral reef, so they are very colored, and they start to get with less colors because they go in the deep waters in the sea. And this moment is a very Fausto, Mephistopheles. It was the two pieces were written at the same time. Okay, it was not written in this version, but it was sang. So you see the transformation, the presence of the devil, and also the moment where the boat gets lost or gets back to Portugal. And then something that is amazing, Claudia Ernest, she is, how do I say, she is a maestrina, and she teaches music, and she uses music as part of education. It used to happen in Brazil before, not now, but she does an amazing, how do I say, project. And she invited the children that live very close to a house that Junko knows in Rio, but far away from Ipanema and Leblon. It's a place, it's 1 hour from there, and it's called Guarachiba. And you have the most amazing small school that has the sea in front and the mangrove in the backyard. The mangrove is there. They were singing with the boys and girls from particular schools and public schools all together, recalling this tradition from the 17th century.
Mm-hmm. I especially appreciate this connection to the children so that we always keep in mind that while we have voices as adults, that it's the lives of the children who are affected by the creation. I think that's very nicely said here. And here we have jumped over to how the poster from this book is an introduction to the solo exhibition that he held in the International Youth Library, which Jochen referred to earlier.
Yes, 10 years ago. And that the way it was really a turning point. And we have the amazing, everybody has to know this amazing fairy tale place, isn't it, Junko?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
not only a fairy tale, it's very solid and it has the whole collection in the world of nowadays and traditional books. For everyone who wants to study visual and written narrative from all over, this is the spot. And I had this privilege, this whole life present of having an exhibition there, and we can see the children, and we are talking about the exhibition, but it was itinerant. I can say this because we could walk all over the castle.
Mm-hmm.
And Johan said to me, Roger, you can do whatever you want to in props and objects that we can show along with the originals. And we decided to make those rays and animals from Brazil, mixing with the amazing sky of Munich. Mm-hmm. And then we have we call it cachara, but it's a kind of catfish, a big catfish from Amazon. And Johan even borrowed me the keys of the castle. Can you believe it? Anna was there. Anna and what's the name
Anna
of
Chernoff.
Anna Chernoff, no, but also our friend that loves Japan.
From Japan?
She loves Japan, but she is from Poland too.
Kasia.
Kasia is turning into a Japanese. No, totally. She is obsessed about
Japanese.
Everybody is obsessed about Japanese culture, but she was making the transition from Polish to Japanese, and we were there working unbelievable, and it looks like a dream, really.
So he brings together people along with their art, and then again, I always enjoy seeing the engagement of the children in all of this bringing together of people that he does so well. So as the winner of the Hans Christian Andersen Award.
I love to see the children laying down and seeing the sea. It's amazing, isn't it? We were really like this. It was, I think we were really, the children were really, just like before, we don't think of children only about as someone that's going to read the story, but all the time, someone who is influencing the new stories,
right.
A part of this vivid dialogue.
So I do like the way the children are looking up at those pieces that you showed us earlier that you had created. But this exhibition was prior to you winning the Hans Christian Andersen Award. Yes. So clearly the library recognized your genius even then. But let's move on to the Hans Christian Andersen Award-winning illustration exhibition that you have done in Korea shortly after you won the Andersen Award.
Yes, we have these. The first time I went to Korea, I'm going to show afterwards, was another turning point in my life because the Nami family and the Nami Island and Mr. Kang, Fred, and all the family, they instantly turned into part of our family, of our life. And this is another amazing spot in the world, and Junko knows it very well. Nami Island is a place where children and birds are free to go wherever they want to go without being bothered. And the concept is that the whole island is a library, isn't it, Junko?
Yes.
And this is the first exhibition. The idea of the exhibition comes directly from Munich, from Johann Weber curatorship, and it travels all around the world. And that was, they did another exhibition. This is just, this is the first exhibition open wild, so it had some limitations, but was amazing in one of the 3 lanes in the island. And then I'm going to show this illustration because we firstly were invited to go to Nami Island to make a book about peace. The name of the book is Peace Story. I think it was an idea of Alice, there was a Brazilian publisher, Gisela, and Betsy, and Liz, and many other people that wanted to do a book about peace, connecting to the ideas of Jelle Lepman. And 88 people from all over the world were invited to go to the island, firstly. And I was invited by FNLIJ, Fundação Nacional do Livro Infantil e Juvenil, the board in Brazil for IBBY, to be the illustrator of a story, and the invited writer was Luciana Sandroni. And it was a book about a boy that decides to show to the other people that his house is amazing in a favela of Rio. And so I was doing this illustration. We made a huge exhibition, but at that point, we were connected forever in Nami.
Completely. And just as an aside, Nami Island is an international picture book island outside of Seoul, and Nami Island is the sponsor of the Hans Christian Andersen Award.
Yes. And then after this, we made a cooperation with Mr. Kang. We are still going to show the exhibition, but there was this cooperation because Mr. Kang, he is the CEO. I think he's much more than a CEO. He's the artist. I don't like CEO word so much. He's the thinker of the dream of Nami. So he is a fabulous magician, crazy person that everything that he draws tomorrow is done. Mm-hmm. So think of that. Just think of that. It's unbelievable. Every trace that he does, everybody, 50 people are doing it as a real dream come true, as a real project. And he thought that he has done what he could do in Nami, and Nami is that paradise. And he decided to go to another island called Jeju. This island is a UNESCO heritage place. It's amazing. It's an ocean island, not like Nami that is a river island. And they have a piece of land, Nami family, and he decided to make Tam Nara. Nami is Nami Nara. Nara means
Republic of. Mm-hmm.
Yes, like Nara in Japan. And he decided to create the island is from volcanic origins, and he was melting the rocks and the ground to create a lava again. And he invited us for a crazy camp that we can afterwards talk about it, but it's a little bit complex. And we had a picnic after this. It was at night, and everybody was seeing again the burning island, as crazy as that. And I said, you are the magma boy. And the magma boy was, what's happening in the image?
You're drawing.
I didn't. Okay, the magma boy was, we decided to do a book together. and Junko was our publisher along with.
Taskmaster to get it done.
We had to do two very different kinds of illustration because he does, I don't know, he's able to do one illustration in 5 minutes, and it takes me a whole week to do the illustration. I don't know what happened here. What's that?
I don't know.
Funny. And so we had to deal with this complex. Can you talk about it a little bit,
Yes.
Junko?
So I think what we're trying to very quickly gather here is this idea that two very different artists from two parts of the world who cannot talk to each other with words, because Mr. Kang speaks Korean and Japanese, and those are two languages, the only two languages maybe among many that Hoja doesn't speak. So the two of them communicated entirely through their art and created one with a very large paintbrushes, sweeping strokes, grains of sand thrown into the image, and creating washes of color. And then, of course, we know Hoja's work with very fine detail, pen and ink. And so the two of them together created something. And I think this is very true to the nature of what we had started this talk about, which is that he is someone who is both in the world, through the world, and then an ambassador back to the world as he creates all along the journey. So what you see here in this particular one is the back. This one was entirely created by Mr. Kang, but if you could turn to the next page.
But it was the first one that we could do because we
Yes.
were traveling around doing this book. The last place was Junko's house again. And he brought lots of pieces of art, isn't it, Junko?
Yes.
And then we said, okay, we have this one, draw us a mermaid. And he drew. And we asked him, please, I think I did the line, but his own drawing. And then the first picture appeared. And it was so important. It was also a contribution of Mariana Massarani because she said, somewhere there should be a mermaid. And the mermaid turned into a very important character. And this is the place, now the island, in Nami, in Jeju, where the story, the scenery of the story takes place, isn't it, Junko? So you can see the paths of the doing of this book all over this amazing place that he created, and he launched it this year, isn't it, Junko?
So this whole idea of being in the world and creating in the world plays out in that one. This is another one that was created in, I think, a hotel room in New Zealand during IBI, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was another cooperation, and it was funny because my second book, there was an invitation by Reza Ahmed, and former president of IBI, and nowadays president of IBI, Ming Zhou, Reza from Malaysia and Ming Zhou from China. And they wanted to do, again, inspired by Yellow Leopard, the union of, for example, writer and illustrator from different opposite places in the world to do a book together. And Chao Wen-chuan hasn't already get the Hans Christian Andersen Award as well. So we did A Feather, another book that we're going to show now. And Ming Zhou says it's a very lucky book because both of us won the Hans Christian Andersen afterwards. But then they invited me to do that book called The Lemon Butterfly. And
you're showing the cover already, which has color on it. But I have to tell you, when you showed the mock-up in New Zealand, and it was just the interior, can you show the interior of the book?
Yes,
because the cover was not available then. It was just the interior.
I'm going to show. I have stopped. I stopped
Yes,
sharing.
we see you.
So,
yes.
This is the book. Oh my God, so many butterflies. The book is about always Chao Wen-chuan. He is this amazing person, and he is very well known in China. Now, after after he won those awards. He's like Madonna. He can't move from one place to the other. Unbelievable how China is fascinated about Chao Wenchuan, and he is the head of the University of Beijing in literature and in philosophy. So I was trying in those two books to illustrate not only the story, but to illustrate him, because he once said that the best place for him to do philosophy is children's book. Children's books. There is a connection, there is a dialogue, there is a walking point of view. So I was trying to do what he said this turn to me. So this is a butterfly that is looking for a field of flowers. But the idea is that the book is almost blank, but you can see there is a small butterfly here. Can you see it?
No. You have to turn it at an angle because it's embossed.
Yes, okay. So it's a white how do I say? It's like
Embossed.
yes. And we have the butterflies. This is the part. This is very Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, where I don't know why people do this. They want to have the dead butterflies hanging on the walls. There was this idea of the shadow getting out in these jackets all over the book, and the book is a leporello. I'm going to show there because I think, but you can see there in the middle there is a butterfly, and the butterfly changes the shape, and it's a cutout, because I was thinking that if some character is looking so desperately for something, she is also an absence. She is also the lack of herself. So this book was made this is Quintin, important. We're going to talk about him afterwards. But we can see the leporello. In Portuguese, the word is biombo. It was funny because I was trying to, when I was talking to Chinese friends about leporello, wall divider, accordion, they didn't get what I was trying to say. And then I said, how am I going to translate the word biombo? Biombo is the word in Portuguese. And they say, oh, piombo. And I realized that the word biombo in Portuguese comes from piompo in Chinese. Since there was this very important exchange, some words in Portuguese are in China now, and some words, Chinese words as Japanese words, are now in Portuguese language. And so for me, the biombo, the wall divider, the leporello, they were part of the Chinese culture, a very old tradition that for me was like a book as well. So this was my tribute for the inspiration that the wall dividers Chinese were for me as a reader. And you have in the middle the leg of the butterflies and this concept. So this is all the team, our friends, amazing friends from CCPPG. And this is the publishing place, how do I say, the place that does the book, the graphic. How do I call Junko in English?
Like the publishing house?
Not the publishing house. The place that does the book, that prints the book, printing house.
Okay.
This printing house prints old, 1,000-year-old original from China. So, and they did this book in this place, and they said that the name of the paper was the most beautiful in Chinese. I can't repeat the name. It was
Isn't that wonderful to have something printed on paper that is called most beautiful for your most beautiful book?
I thought that it remembered me of a song in Brazil, because the most beautiful looked like the shell, the eggshell texture, a really amazing paper. And
so look at that with that child interacting.
This was the dummy of the book. The dummy is very important for me as a traveling process. Junko said that it was traveling around, it was in New Zealand, it was in IBI Congress, it was in Bologna, and then finally in China. And when I brought this object with not so many colors, some neon colors, but not so many colors, they said, okay, Roger, where are the colors? I was trying to say that was a different book. That was not meant to be a colored, and they understood it. And they said, okay, let's go. And CCBBG publishing house is like in China, it's a governmental place, and it's a huge whole building, a whole floor of a new building, and the up floor is a library. And they said, can we take, that was amazing, can we take the dummy and present it for the children? And then we have this amazing picture where the girl is inside the book as a fortress, as a house, and her finger crosses the page. She's crossing the character. So it was amazing for me to have this picture.
Very much. You know, our presentation time has quickly come to an end here, but I would like to ask you to end this first part of the presentation with the cover of, okay, you changed the order of the slides. It should be the book cover next.
The same order, but I think that 2 pages are missing
when
we went from PPT to PDF.
Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at the cover for Bookbird as our closing part of our presentation. What happened to your cover of Bookbird? Go backwards, backwards, backwards. It should be before this.
Let me show here. Probably the problem is that it's too heavy and it wasn't read. So, okay. Talk about it
while you look for it. Bookbird is the journal for IBI, and it's both an informal way of looking at children's literature around the world, as well as a very academic way of studying children's literature around the world. And at one point, we wanted to have a fundraiser for the Children in Crisis Fund. And so Bookbird asked Haja to create a piece of original art that we could auction for the purpose of raising funds for this very important fund. And he created this absolutely stunning piece of art. And what I found fascinating about it is that he was able to bring together both who he is as an illustrator, bring back his background as a Brazilian illustrator, his very individual and unique voice, but all the while embodying that which is the ideals behind IBI, bringing books of great quality to children. And so how that all flowed together was shown in this original piece of art that we will see soon.
Yes. Yes.
And we auctioned that off, and we raised over $10,000 for Children in Crisis. So
Yeah.
it's a wonderful way to conclude the story of how he is in the world, through the world, and to the world.
And the idea is that there is a palm tree in Amazonia,
Mm-hmm.
and this palm tree, believe me, she can walk. And you can see in the middle one of the Paxiúba tree, the Paxiúba palm tree. You see the aerial roots. When she grows up, she grows from the ground, but all of a sudden she disconnects with the ground and she is free to walk. And the aerial roots go slowly, really slowly. Slowly, they move in the direction of water. This is but some of them, you can even see that they are walking in a very slow motion way, really slow. And the chain that are part of the chain of the book creation involves the people who carry the book, the people who bring the book to children. For example, in Amazon, they have to go to rivers, and these rivers keep changing of places. The librarians, the booksellers, the publishers, the printing places, everybody that worked in a publishing house, everybody's an artist. So it's difficult sometimes to keep on trying to promote reading in places in the middle of the war, places that are inaccessible almost, but you have to do it. And if a palm tree can walk, everything is possible.
Right. So at some point, perhaps in this, we will be able to see this beautiful pink art. But our time for the presentation, Roger, has quickly come to an end. And I wanted to make sure there was time for questions. And I know that Julie has been monitoring the chat room and having questions submitted to her. So I would like to turn over the mic to Julie to bring some of the questions to you.
Sure. And I am wondering, would you like your question in Spanish or in English, Roger?
Doesn't matter. We can mix.
Okay, since I'm on the English channel, I'll translate from Galia. She has a question. I find in your beautiful work an intimate relationship with poetry. Do you inspire yourself with visual poetry? Thank you for your generosity. It's a delight to listen to the two of you.
Oh, thank you so much. What's her name?
Galia. Ospina Vialba.
Galia, una pregunta. Galia, thank you so much. I am really influenced by poetry, because poetry is, I always say that I mix images and words. They seem for me the same thing. And really, maps and poetry, those are the two proofs that images and pictures are the same. If you have a poem and it's done in a kind of word font, it changes completely. When you change the font, when you change the diagram of the poem, everything can harm or can contribute with the shape of the poem. So this idea that there's no separation between words and images. And if we think of the oldest book in the world, if we think of the book of the death in Egypt, everything was already connected. You cannot separate images and words, and because it's a symbiosis. It's not a mutualism. It's something, if you separate one from the other, the whole artistic object is over.
Thank you. Jorge Nzuza from Ilo Colectivo asks, what is there in the history of Brazil that isn't told that you would like to show?
Jorge, amazing question. Many things. I think Brazil, just like other countries, we have untold stories, we have in-between anthropic stories, and we, of course, are trying to tell the untold stories. I think we are protesting. If it's talking about protest, we are shouting out and loud all the time about the many abusive situations that we thought they were kind of over, but now they are on and on again. Unbelievable, unthoughtable things that will return as ridiculous military people trying to reach the power again, only showing how ridiculous they are. We thought they were funny characters, overreacting characters of some stories, but they are not. They are even more overacting characters. But some of the untold stories, we really want them to be read in between by children. I think we don't want to finish with the mystery. I think that when we read Garcia Marquez or Jorge Amado or Maria Teresa Andrueto. We are talking about, there's so much amazing silence in this noise that is untold. So we want to keep these secrets for the children to go into them and find them their own ways.
Mhm.
Wonderful, thank you. Jose Hernandez wonders, when you're making a story, what are you starting with first? The text, or at least a guide, outline, or illustration?
It depends. A book like the I don't have it open. There is a book we did, me and Rosiana write those poems, and she brought me the poems, and I did the illustrations and the mock-up and the design. But we then did a book called Deserts that I did. How do I say? Oh my God! Not a notebook, a book of a traveling book, where to Morocco's, where I did many drawings and writings, and Rosiana did she said, I want to illustrate your illustrations with poetry. So many times sometimes they are done together, like the Magma Boy book, because we were writing, Mr. Kang wanted to contribute in the story, of course, because he was also the author of the story, and he was doing some theater. And me and Junko, we were trying to take note of what he was doing. So the illustration and the story were doing all together.
Thank you. Not exactly a question, but I wonder if you have something to share. I will share the chat with you and Junko afterwards, but there was a lovely exchange ongoing about making more connections between Brazilian books, authors and illustrators, and Spanish-speaking Americas. And I wonder if you just would like to talk about that exchange and possibilities and what you have seen.
I, for example, because of the books, I turned into more and more a traveler. So I can say that I am so privileged to know many illustrators and writers all over South America, Latin America, Mexico, and they are really, really amazing. But sometimes I see, and all my friends from Mexico, from Colombia, from Peru, Argentina, Uruguay, all over, they complain and they write that we don't get to those books easily. Sometimes it's easier for me to get a book from Europe than to get a book from Argentina, or to get a book from Peru, Colombia. So I think Colombia is doing a wonderful, she is publishing many, she has been published many, for example, Brazilian and other Latin American countries. And I'm just trying to guess, but I think Colombia is one of the places that translates more books from other countries in Latin America. But sometimes it's really difficult. It's much easier, for example, for me to publish a book in China or United States, which is a place that doesn't publish so many not English books. Junko, how many? Bill used to say
Less than 1% of what
less.
we are publishing children's books.
So even among Latin American countries, it's a pity, because we are losing authors like Adolfo Cordova, like Isol. I think Isol is pretty well known in Brazil, or many other writers and illustrators all around. Jairo Buitrago, and many amazing writers and illustrators in Brazil. Yolanda Reis, amazing. She is fabulous, from Colombia.
Maria Rosa is curious if you use digital technique from beginning, or first make it physical, for example, or collage for a book.
Yes, I always do it menu, how they say, handmade. It's always handmade. Even that one that I changed the colors is handmade, but because I don't know how to do it really digitally, but this is not a prejudice against digitally done. I love the marvelous illustrations of many of my friends do. And Guilherme Casten, he's an amazing illustrator from Brazil. He's talking about Renato Morricone, Odilon de Moraes, Nelson Cruz, Rodolfo, Cissa Fittipaldi, Angela Lago. In Brazil, many people. Angela Lago soon started to use digital illustration, and it was unbelievable. Mariana Massarani, she's my partner, and we do so many books together. Felipe Cavalcante, many people, you do it digitally, but I can't because I don't know how to do it.
But he manipulates the end product with digital.
Yes, but I don't know how to. This is very difficult to do it digitally, and it takes a lot of time, isn't it? Because people think that digitally it's easy. Some people say, "Oh, but you did it digitally." Sometimes it takes much more time to do it digitally than to do it by hand. Although in the end you have it already done for printing, closer to ready for printing.
Mhm.
This is a question from me.
Okay. Thank you, Julie.
I get to ask questions.
Julie, can you make the question in Spanish or Portuguese?
It's the test now. You know, I would, but I'm supposed to stay on the English channel,
Okay,
so
okay, because of our wonderful translator.
interpreters. I've learned that lesson.
Okay.
It's a tough question. Do you have a favorite book of your own? One that gave you pleasure in the working, or the context where you were?
It's not so tough. The book is You Can't Be Too Careful. This is a Chinese version.
Here's the English version.
You have You Can't Be Too Careful, translated by Daniel Han. And it's a very crazy book. And I would say that it's funny because in Brazil, it was not so understood, I might say. Some books, they happen to happen in different ways. This is a very crazy book, and in English and in Chinese, that was the first book that people wanted to translate. And Jill from Elsewhere Archipelago, she said, "This is the book I want to translate first." And I don't know, maybe because in English there is this tradition of the nonsense that would approximate this crazy narrative. In Brazil, it's thought of a very crazy book. For adults, they think it's not for children. I don't think this is true.
And as we wait for more questions to come in, and Junko, you may have yet more that you didn't get a chance to ask.
Yes, actually I do. And it's a good transition.
All right, let's go for it.
He said, in Brazil, that last book, You Can't Be Too Careful, isn't a book for children. In Brazil, they say that, but of course, we all know that it is, in fact, very much for children. But I don't know how many people who are in the audience today are aware of the multifaceted Roger Mello, beyond children's books, beyond illustration, to know that he writes books for adults. Yes. He is a playwright. He sings, he acts, and has these very many sides of his talent that we don't see if we only think of him, I say only, as a children's book author and illustrator, because he is such a well-rounded person of many, many, many talents. So I would like to hear Roger talk about his work as an adult writer, and also his work as a playwright, and his work as a singer, performer, and all of that, if that's appropriate to include here.
I think that arts are connected, Junko. You know this is true.
Yes.
And if we could walk through arts map, and this book is a book about maps, the map would be mixing everything: images, words, music. Of course, we are talking about trying to connect one layer of art to the others. All those shelves are over our heads. And for example, this book is about a cartographer and a copyist, because in Portugal, those cartographers, they were like, they held the secrets of the nation. So if you went to Brazil, you went to Brazil and you didn't want people to go to Brazil. We only us are going to spoil the things from Brazil, not the other people. And then decided to draw. They are amazing artists. They were mixing words and the names of places and the names of the mountain ranges with pictures, monsters. Before, only macaws and birds and parrots and the Cornwall and the riches of the other countries, other for them. And then they decided to include monsters and cannibals, because it was a way to say, keep out, this place is amazing, but you're going to be eaten, you're going to be broken into pieces. So this was a way. This book that has no illustration is a book about being a cartographer, and as a person that copies the map, you know some secrets, and you can, how they say, the punishment can be death if you reveal the secrets of some ways. So it's in a way that you can be killed if you go through arts. I like this concept from the Arabian Nights, this idea that Sherazade, she has to tell stories because otherwise she's going to be killed. So you have to decide, living or doing not. So this is something that sometimes people think that it's easy to survive, to make a living on arts, but it's really, you have really, it's a lot of pain involved. And I think
But I also like very much that you started and ended this last comment with a sense of you are an artist. And then it's hard to make a living off of the arts altogether, because being an author and illustrator of children's books also is bringing together all of these artistic sides of who you are. And I think that your great passion for music has something to do with how you create works for children. I want to conclude with one idea, which is weaving together what someone asked earlier in the question about how you can create more cooperation with other book creators throughout Latin America. And I think that Volney's work with Kinjim is an important part of both what you do in helping the books of many, many creators to the hands and hearts of children, as well as to fellow book creators, and to, most importantly at this point, the book promoters who work with the children. Because between the role of the creators and the ending within the hands of the children, we need this very important body of people who bring the creations to the readers. And I think if you could talk a little bit about how Kinjim and that kind of organization plays an important role in bringing together all the audiences, it would be a nice way for us to conclude this talk.
I'm trying to find Kinjim here, because yes, Kinjim.
It used to be after the Bologna cover, but you changed, and after Emilia.
Yes, it disappeared. Oh no, it's here. But Kinjim is a creation of Volney, as you said, Instituto Kinjim. He is my husband. I am the vice president of Kinjim. So it's a library with more than 6,000 books in all languages. of the world. I think this is very important to be in context, and we get this from Yellow Lab and IBBI, the idea that we have to go into the books from all over. And it's not possible not knowing the books from Latin America, from our neighbors, because it's a way, like Mr. Chaldenstrand says, to think. It's our way to do philosophy of words and images. And Quindim, Instituto Quindim is in the south of Brazil, but is also a movement that involves artists, thinkers, experts all around the world. And we do many connections. We did
all these Facebook Live interviews.
Yes.
And the Instagram Live.
Junko was one of our guests. We have to invite Julie and Johan because now we have a huge, amazing material about this chatting that they want to do a book about it.
So it's not just a physical place with all these 6,000 books, but
No.
most importantly, it's using digital resources to create a community that is worldwide. And many of the people who were interviewed initially on this were creators from the various Latin American countries, but also beyond. And I think that taking something that is a place we may or may not ever get to go to because it's in the south part of Brazil, but bringing it to the world digitally is in fact answering that question in a sense, or beginning to address the question that someone asked earlier about how we can create more cooperation.
And again, also something very important, Junko, having Instituto Quindim, we can connect with Milwaukee University, we can connect with...
I knew you would say Milwaukee again.
We can connect to Espantapájaros in Colombia, we can connect to Imaginário in Peru. So this is a very important way to make our voices stronger.
Right. And I think Julie's creation of this series is a part of that connections that we make, both within this space, but beyond, connecting it through IBI, connecting it through as many avenues as possible, because the more of us who are connected in the world under the same goals, it's important. Well, our time together has come very quickly to an end. And so from my perspective, I think it's easy for you all to see what I intended from the beginning, which is to see Roger Mello, who is the man, the creative genius, who is in fact born in Brazil, but definitely representing a wider world, living in the world, through the world, and to the world in all that he creates. So thank you for your time, and I'm concluding my part of the participation here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really amazing. We Julie, if possible, we want all because there are many, how they say, questions and sayings in the chat that are amazing.
We will share that. And one of them, Jorge at the end asked about the Facebook site for Instituto Quindim.
Oh, Facebook site. No, it's very, if you enter Instituto Quindim, Quindim, Instituto before, it's very easy to enter there and you can see many things. Let me just check up because I'm not very good. Instituto de Leitura Quindim. I can write it down here, isn't it? Instituto de Leitura Quindim. I think, Julie, it's really very important, as Junko said, to have these places, because to do these connections more effective, if we have these, let's say, if we have these communities, it's easier for us to know what's being produced around the world.
Yes, and this is where we thank again Joachim Weber and the International Youth Library, because this, again, series wouldn't have happened without it. And I'll add, the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, our libraries is planning to start an international children's literature collection, starting first with books from our summer series, using our federal funding through the U.S. Department of Education. We'll be doing it, the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies, together with our campus Center for International Education. As we have money, we will help it grow, and it's a way to help diversify children's literature, especially for the teacher and pre-service teacher audience at our institution. Wow, golly, thank you both so very much.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you so much, Johan. It was amazing.
This was wonderful. And again, if you look at the comments in the chat, and I will share it, we're not alone thinking it was wonderful. So thanks to everyone. We will have one more event in this series on August 24th. Jochen Weber will be moderator for the Argentine writer Gusti. So we look forward to joining us.
And
everybody
also,
joining us. More bridges.
Yes.
I would like to thank Junko as well, because we thought that a dialogue would be much better, since to be only, if it was only me speaking, it could be a repetition of what I say. And when we have a dialogue, we can see this third thing coming.
Well, and you can tell you two are like brother and sister.
Yes.
Very much.
Just so wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you August 24th. Thank you, Junko. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for our whole team.